Good morning. My name is Linda Karniclis, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you have been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. The announcements today are, we have these lovely flowers. Thank you, Megan. We're going to be asking next week for everyone to, if you want to, and I know you want to, sign up to bring in flowers on Sunday for the rest of the year. And there was one more announcement, and I'll be darned if I can remember what. Oh, yes, grocery cards. We'll be selling grocery cards after the service this morning. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. The website is also the place where you can find contact information for our staff, our Board of Trustees, and other congregational leaders. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you're present in the sanctuary, you can just join us outside in the parking lot. If you're watching the live stream, your Saturday morning UUCHV mail reminder has the link that you can click on to join a virtual coffee hour. If you are just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-newsletter, please email us with your name and we'll make sure you're added to our e-news list. We can also answer any questions you might have, certainly most of them. Email us at uucroton@gmail.com or fill out one of the yellow cards in the back of the pews and drop it in the collection plate. Please silence your cell phones at this time. And once again, we welcome you all to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Thank you.
Welcome to this common sacred space. Common because we are all welcome, sacred because we transform the ordinary and attend to the profound. We carry with us our regrets, doubts, fears, stories, laughter. May they inspire our worship. Above all, may we each meet what we need most to find on this day in this common sacred space.
Good morning. Our chalice lighting this morning is by George Brooks. May we light this chalice to honor our past, for Jan Hus burned at the stake for suggesting that a cup be shared by all. For our service committee's earliest days, when its logo enabled the persecuted to find a safe haven. May we light this chalice to endorse our present, for commitment to truth and freedom, without which right relationships are impossible. For our commitment to character and honor, without which dignity is a sham. Let us light this chalice to symbolize our future, for a brighter future for everyone on earth, for a sustaining faith that carries us through even the darkest of times. And now, if you would all join me in our unison affirmation, it's printed in the order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a personally significant joy or sorrow that you are willing to share, please come up to the microphone to my left, your right, and speak to it loudly and clearly so that even through your mask, we can all hear you. The microphone will allow our friends watching virtually to hear what you're saying. I will light a candle for each. When you are finished speaking, please use the center aisle to return to your seat. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand and I will light it for you.
Hello, I'm Reverend Josh. I have joy. I was accepted into an apartment that I applied for. So I'll be moving to New York on October 25th. So in defiance of all predictions against the New York housing crisis, I managed to eke one out. So I'm very happy about that. I look forward to being here a little later in the morning. I'm Eddie Freed, spouse of your worship associate today, Claire Freed. I've been a member here a very, very long time, and I love this place, and I love you all. And it's hard to acknowledge that this might be one of the last times I'm here, because we bought a house in Ohio to be near three of our grandchildren, ages 5, 3, and 5 months. And so we're packing up and getting ready to move out. And I just want to say how much I'm looking forward to the live stream, because we intend to stay connected for a good while. And love you all. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I don't know if this is reaching me. I'm Betsy Cates. A lot of you know me from the online services from the summer and from before. This is a candle of sorrow for 25 Old Jackson Avenue, the home of First Unitarian Society of Westchester and Hastings. Our congregation voted this week to pursue the probability of selling the property, and also of investigating the idea of sharing space with South Presbyterian Church in Dobbs Ferry, where we will probably be temporarily housed, we think, for about a year. It's very sad to see our building the way it is. We do still have our GoFundMe, because there's a lot of cost involved with trying to clear everything out and make it sellable. So thanks for your support.
I'm not used to microphones. Is this clear?
No, louder. Just talk less. Speak up.
Oh. I have two sorrows. A friend in Michigan died unexpectedly. He was always very healthy looking, He was our mail carrier for many years, and he wrote a column every week for the local newspaper, and always showed up at the Curtis Second Saturday Writers Group. And he wrote a poem at the beginning of the pandemic. May the virus inspire us. Why are you wearing that mask, you ask? Does freedom mean nothing to you? Must everyone suffer and cover their snuffer, protecting the frail and incurable few? I stand for my country, my great First Amendment. No government can silence my voice. I say it out loud, defiant and proud. I guess you can call me pro-choice. The mask that I wear is a statement I care for God's children less healthy than I.
It is a small sacrifice, I reply, and this mask protects you and your family too. It is a small sacrifice, I reply, and freedom's gift, it need not be a yoke, nor expressed at the point of a knife. Though my face is obscured, I am part of the cure. I guess you could call me pro-life. Tom Burgett?
He had a Dutch ancestry. And my other sorrow is that a very dear friend will be committing suicide on October 25th. She lives in California. She's taking advantage of the legal physician-assisted suicide. She has brain cancer and lung cancer. And I'd like to tell you more about her, but I can't.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they too can share their joys and sorrows.
I invite you now to join in the spirit of meditation. You may want to do so by sitting up a little straighter in your chair, putting your feet on the floor to ground you to the earth, and taking a nice deep breath in and gently release it, releasing all of the stress of the week. Be gentle with one another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within, human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. Let us join now in a moment of silent meditation.
The reading this morning is The Frog in the Water, the boiled frog. They say that if you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, it will leap out right away and escape the danger. But if you put a frog in a kettle that is filled with water that is cool and pleasant, and then you gradually heat the kettle until it starts boiling, the frog will not become aware of the threat until it's too late. The frog's survival instincts are geared toward detecting sudden changes. This is a story that is used to illustrate how people might get themselves into terrible trouble. This parable is often used to illustrate how humans have to be careful to watch slowly changing trends in the environment, not just the sudden changes. It's a warning to keep us paying attention, not just to obvious threats, but to more slowly developing ones.
When all is said and done, it may be that my divorce is the most spiritually transformative event of my life, at least of my adulthood. Alcoholics and even some mystics relate to the spiritually transformative events may not be peak experiences as is normally thought, but rather the moment of hitting rock bottom in some sense. It's an irony or a paradox that enlightenment may actually come to us in the midst of profound suffering rather than at the top of the proverbial mountain. We might call this the spirituality of loss. Such a paradox has been my experience. There's that opening line of Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. Hang on. In which he says, happy families are all alike, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Which means, for a storyteller like me, the unhappy families are far more interesting than the healthy ones are. They're the stories that I like to tell, though I realize it can be an uncomfortable subject for some people. If you are among them, I do apologize to you in advance for not just this Sunday, but probably future Sundays to come. Like I said, my divorce is endlessly fascinating to me. I think of it kind of like a piece of coal. It's dirty and unappealing at first, yet when you look closer, there are facets to it that catch the light, and your eye can't seem to look away. So that what is messy and dirty and something you want to move away from is also fuel for a new chapter of life. Some of the ironies are the things that I think about that, again, kind of fascinate me. My ex-wife gave me divorce papers while I was at work in my office in San Antonio. I was waiting for, of all things, a couple to come by whose wedding I was going to conduct, and we were having a premarital consultation that afternoon. This was who I thought was at my office door when they rang the bell, and instead one receives legal papers that very kind of, complicated in an esoteric sort of way tell you that your life as you've known it is now over. I may have described before to you the kind of dizzying effect of both fear and confusion at such news. I remember the room literally spinning, and I had to lean on the copier in order to get my balance. The day after that event, I had to write a sermon for that week, a topic which I had given to myself on love languages and how to communicate messages of love to your partner. Talk about salt in the wound. Oh my gosh. And yet, in retrospect, I think it should not have come as a surprise. There is that old proverb, which we heard this morning in our reading, that told about a frog in a pan of water. I had heard it often enough in college as a kind of metaphor. I'm not sure if anyone ever conducted this experiment with frogs and boiling water. The anecdotes are often kind of told to us with an air of experience about it, so I assume someone's risked the wrath of the ASPCA to try this on two unsuspecting frogs. At any rate, I can relate to the frog who stayed in the water too long as it gradually boiled over. There is a lot one can adapt to when it's felt to be absolutely necessary. I think the biggest issue with my ex-wife Sharon and I was that we didn't communicate with each other at all, really. In fact, we kind of regarded our lack of communication as a point of strength in our relationship. We knew what the other person was thinking already. We didn't have to have these long, soul-searching conversations where we professed every thought or feeling to each other. We were comfortable with silence. We were independent and not needy or bleeding all over the other. And that worked for about 10 years, 2 kids, and at least one cross-country move. From what I can tell, it was the second cross-country move to Texas that was kind of the beginning of the end. And while Sharon understood this and agreed to the move, her heart really wasn't in it. We had a hard time selling our house in Delaware, and it soon became a financial burden to us, and shortly thereafter, first her father and then her mother passed away. And that's a lot of emotional lifting for anyone to do in a relatively short period of time. And when you take all that and put it on a relationship in which the two parties aren't used to communicating to each other on a regular basis, and you've got the beginning of trouble. To return to our reading this morning, the pan was starting to get warm. It wasn't boiling yet, but had I paid attention better, I maybe would have noticed the water heating up. What was independence became distance. We're having separate experiences and handling them, and with handling these problems, and then those separate experiences became separate lives. And that's when I noticed the water I was swimming in was getting a little hot to handle when we went to a school performance for one of the boys, and she didn't want to sit next to me. There was literal space between us. And when I suggested counseling, she simply shrugged her shoulders. And yet, I was still surprised when I saw that I was a frog stuck in boiling water. Now, surely, this is a biased and some might argue even unfair account of how things came to an end. Be the divorce between people or between congregations, I live by the maxim that there are three versions to the story, one side, the other side, and the truth lies somewhere in between. Sharon would no doubt relate. Very different version of these events if she had the opportunity. There's no such thing as an objective account to this stuff, particularly when the narrator, me, is one of the participants. And so you might imagine, it was with a certain amount of glee last summer that I experienced when I saw the theme for the month of October that Soul Matters had come up with: cultivating relationships. Oh, goody. I've got a lot to say about that topic. It's going to be a fun month. The comedian Chris Rock has a fantastic special on Netflix called Tambourine. And no, I won't be playing a portion of it for you. I push a lot of boundaries with those videos, but I'm not doing Chris Rock. I will summarize a few things here, not quote verbatim. But it's called Tambourine, and the special is really Chris Rock's coming to terms with his divorce and his cheating on his wife, which he talks about pretty frankly with an amazing amount of candor. Being in a relationship's like being in a band, he says. Sometimes you sing lead vocals. Other times you're on tambourine. And when you're on tambourine, play the tambourine for all it's worth. He goes on to observe, somewhat musically, Hall & Oates. I don't know what Oates does, but Hall never had a hit record without him. He goes on to describe a vision for what relationships should be. They should be service of both people to the other. You are both there to serve. He uses an example which I've stolen for my title this morning, because I want to spend some time talking about it. He says, he notes that one person cannot move a couch by themselves, but two people together can move a couch without much problem at all. That is to say that if only one person is trying to keep a relationship going, it is darn near impossible, like moving a couch by yourself. But if both people are committed to each other and to the relationship they form in coming together, then it's very easy to have a loving and happy relationship. To continue that analogy, if two people are trying to move a couch together, they can probably fit it through some pretty tight squeezes. In both moving a couch and in being in a relationship, it takes intentional communication. But to get into what intentional communication means, I have to continue my story a bit. Well, it's all well and good to know what went wrong. in a relationship. Over the course of a couple of years, I listened to enough country music to know that much, at least. Never understood country music before I got divorced. You listen to more of it, actually, when it happens. But that's really only half of it. You need to learn how to do relationships right after one has crashed and burned. And that is where Sherry comes in. Now, I feel a little bit of a PSA is necessary here. Hopefully it's obvious, but I don't want to assume, so we're all going to be on the same page. When I'm talking about my relationship, it is with Sherry Warren, whom I love very much, who many of you met last June. I am not in a relationship with Sherry Brown, our board president. That Sherry is a wonderful person whom I respect and work well with. However, henceforth in this morning's sermon, when you hear me speaking of Sherry, don't think that one. Sherry Warren. Please do not conflate the two or start anything creative in the church grapevine. Thank you. Now, Sherry Warren and I had been friends for many years. We're about the same age, and she was serving as the DRE in Lawrence, Kansas, while I was serving in my first ministry in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, for those of you a little fuzzy on your Midwest geography, I know you New Yorkers get it's a little vague sometimes, but just to let you know that Lawrence, Kansas and Omaha, Nebraska are relatively close to each other, at least by Midwestern standards. It's probably about a 2 or 3 hour drive between the two, which is close for that part of the world. So we saw each other at district events and trainings. We were both married, we had young kids, so we were just friends. And when I moved to Delaware, we kept up on Facebook. Well, it turns out we have a tremendous amount in common, and that included her experience of trying to move a couch by herself in her marriage as well. Like me, she found herself the only one putting effort into keeping it together. And if I can mix the two central metaphors of my sermon this morning, she too was something of a frog in an ever-heated water. Her water started boiling about the same time mine did, and the result was that 15 years later, we both found ourselves single. And it was exactly 1 year ago today that our relationship began. So this is our 1 year anniversary today. We're finally brave enough to admit that we each had a crush on the other. And I can't tell you how amazing that moment is, but what has to be even better is what has grown since that day a year ago. We are both used to being the one putting the effort into a relationship, trying really hard, and very intentional about our communication with each other. Turns out it is easy to move a couch when both people are working together, but they still have to be proactive in communicating. Well, here's what I've learned, and am still learning. The first is that honesty has to be the foundation. This is something we strive toward all the time, and it actually takes adjustment. If you consider doing something that you might have to conceal, or it makes you think you might have to conceal it, is it better to do something easy and lie about it, or to face the hard truth and be honest so that you can be honest down the road? That's a challenging spiritual practice. We like fooling ourselves. And while I don't think of myself as a generally dishonest person, it's a useful exercise on how do I live my life in such a way that I would never have to lie about anything I do to my partner, to my kids, to my parents, to my congregants, or even, and most especially, to myself. With honesty as a foundation, kind of a foundational value, that means that I share with her what I am thinking and feeling. This entails vulnerability. And as I share more, become more vulnerable with her, she proves herself to be worthy of those thoughts and feelings. I've told Sherry things I've literally never told anyone else, and she has done the same with me. We all take a risk when we're vulnerable with someone. We see how they handle that fragile egg that is our heart that Dick Gilbert talked about. If they handle it well, then our trust in them increases. As time goes by, if we're still honest, still sharing, still vulnerable, then that trust grows and magnifies exponentially. Whenever we're together, I come away trusting her more and more each time, even though I didn't think I could trust her more than I did. Which is not to say that I'm perfect at it, but Sherry has helped me see and understand how communication could work, should work in a relationship. Honesty, sharing, vulnerability, and trust are not just values. They are specific practices to cultivating a relationship. It doesn't just happen. You can't take all that for granted. It's the work that one must devote time towards. Speak up if you feel the water's getting hot. If you do, you can move a couch anywhere you want. It's gotten us through a long-distance courtship in a pandemic. There's a kind of butterfly effect that happens in relationships. Small things, a few words, a gesture, and simple acts of kindness grow into something larger than itself. Scientists talk about a butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Kansas, and that small perturbation of the atmosphere can gather momentum and become a thunderstorm in Michigan. And so too do the frequent little things add up to be greater than the sum of their parts through the course of a relationship. There are a lot of places to start. One place, ironically, is love languages. If you're not familiar with Chapman's 5 love languages, go online, take the test. Have your partner take the test too. Discuss the results. Love languages are ways in which we help understand how to be effective in communicating to your partner. It's a sort of foundation I use for counseling couples on the verge of taking that big plunge. And that can get you started. But if you really want to cultivate your relationship, it really is simple, as Chris Rock says. Put the other person first before yourself. And if they put you first before themselves, then you know things are going well. You can likely move any couch life throws at you. If you're doing that for each other on a regular basis, you don't even get tempted to be selfish. The other is on the forefront of your mind and heart, and they reciprocate in kind. Hall & Oates make another hit record, right? May the lessons of love, both successful and unsuccessful, serve to be spiritually transformative. May despair and desperation give way to the hope that a new day provides. And may we be blessed in our attempts to maneuver the couch up the narrow stairwell of life. I love you. Go in peace. Amen.
Each week, we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in the spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who, in their turn, gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will be shared by the UUSC in support of their efforts in the aftermath of the earthquake in Haiti, Afghan refugees, and New Orleans after Hurricane Ida. You can refer to our e-newsletter for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. Or, if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me for the dedication of the offering. The words are printed in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for a community of faith. And please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Go in peace. Hold in your heart the certainty that the Spirit of life is with you always. When your heart is torn asunder, or when you soar with sweet joy, you are never alone, never apart from the Spirit that resides within you. The Spirit guides our lives and cherishes us always. Take comfort. Blessed be.
So when's this all happening, Claire? Do you have a sense of when you're going out to Ohio for keeps? When are you going out to Ohio for keeps?